After being called by God to be a priest in the Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska, I was called again and again and again. Called first to study in Rome, called secondly to work in the Vatican, and called thirdly to be a bishop. With each of those after-the-fact calls, I tried to get out of it. And each time, someone who I hoped would support my no said, "You must say yes. It's the call of God." And each time, I'm ashamed to say, I wept. What a wimp. It's quite a contrast between my pitiful example and the example of the disciples of John the Baptist, who took off to follow Jesus, telling him, "We're ready to go wherever you're going." And there's an even greater contrast with how responsive Samuel was to being called out by God for service. Each time, despite what happened the last time, each time, no matter that he'd already been called out, each time, whatever the task he'd be called to do, each time Samuel answered, "Here I am. How can I serve?" That's the example we should follow. That and the example of John the Baptist's disciples, not the example of an old, fat, bald archbishop. Maybe God is calling us during prayer or in the night during a dream to a vocation to the single or married life, to religious life, or to be a priest in the Archdiocese of Dubuque. Maybe God is calling us through a church minister, like a pastor, inviting us to a deeper engagement in prayer and worship, in learning and teaching the gospel, and helping the poor. Or maybe God is calling us directly through the poor making a claim on our love. Someone who's hungry saying, "Feed me." An immigrant or a newcomer saying, "Welcome me." God doesn't compel our response with threats. Except for maybe it would seem the call through the poor to help the poor. At the end of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus says, we stand to lose heaven if we don't help the poor. And God doesn't entice us with rewards, except for maybe it would seem by the promise of Jesus that we will receive an abundance of whatever it is that we're willing to share with others. Hopefully, there's no need for threat or reward. But when God calls, we'll respond freely, cheerfully, sacrificially, like Samuel. "Here I am. How can I serve?"